Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We'll be looking at Galatians chapter 3, verse 19. But before we begin, our theme verse for Lunch with the Lord, Jeremiah 15:16. Thy words were found, and I did eat them. And thy word was unto me the joy and rejoicing of my heart. Now, as we saw last lesson, that in verse 18, for if the inheritance be of the law, it is no more of promise, but God gave it to Abraham by promise. If the inheritance is from the law, then it can't be from the promise of God. The same thing, if it's from the promises of God, it can't be from the law, because both the promise and the law are completely opposite of each other. It can't have both. And then it says, but God gave it to Abraham by promise. God graciously gave to Abraham the promise that God made with him. All right? Now verse 19, wherefore then serves the law? It is added because of transgressions, till the seed should come to whom the promise was made. And it was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator. Now, in verses 19 through 29, it shows the purpose of the law. What was the purpose of the law anyways, okay? And in verses 19 through 23, the law was given to show man that sin is the direct violation of the laws of God. So here in verse 19, it says, wherefore then serves the law? Like, what was the purpose of God giving it to us in the first place anyways? It was added because of transgressions. Now, the Greek word for transgressions is parabasis, and it means to go aside, to overstep a boundary. So before the law was ever given to Moses, sin was in the world. In Romans chapter 5, we read verses 13 and 14. Paul here writes to the Romans and he says, for until the law, sin was in the world. Okay? From the time Adam and Eve were created up until the time God gave Moses the law, that approximately 2,500 year of history, sin was in the world. But sin is not imputed where there is no law. Okay? Sin's not imputed where there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him that was to come. So during the 2,500 years from Adam to Moses, only inherent law existed. It's inherent law. Inherent law is God's right over his creation and the creation's responsibility to God. So, even though there wasn't an actual written law, there was an inherent law built within every single person, and it's still built within us today. The fact that inherent law existed in the hearts of men is seen in that death reigned from Adam to Moses. Death is the visual result that within the heart of man existed an inherent law that made man responsible to God. And this is why you see where people that are jungle people, you go out there and they have no contact with with the outside world, yet within their community they have laws. It's just built within man to have an inherent law. God put it in man to say that, yes, murder is wrong. You don't need a written law to know that. Murder is wrong. Stealing is wrong. Hitting someone is wrong. And did God write it on a law back in that 2,500 year period of time? No, he didn't. But it was built within man, this inherent law. And we know that there was an inherent law because death reigned. People died. They disobeyed that law. The fact that men and women died from Adam to Moses was proof that every human being was infected with a sinful nature that caused them to overstep God's boundaries. The law was never given to man to tell us that we are sinners. We already knew we were sinners before the law came. How did we know we're sinners? Because people died. People died. We were disobeying God's laws, God's inherent laws, before the written law came. It was given to show us how sinful we are. It's just like remember what Jesus said when the scribes and Pharisees came to Jesus and Jesus had to show them what sin was really like. And Jesus said, if you even look upon a woman to lust after her, you've sinned, you've done it. You see, scribes and Pharisees thought, well, if we don't commit the act, we're okay. As long as we don't steal, we're all right. As long as I actually don't go out on a date with this other woman and don't tell my wife, it's all right. As long as I don't do that, I'm okay. But Jesus said, oh, no. See, you're looking at sin how man sees sin. Man sees sin on the outward appearance. But you have to understand, God sees the heart. And Jesus said, if you even look and in your mind you lust after that woman, or you lust after stealing that thing, if you lust after something in your mind, then what? In the eyes of God, you did it. Sorry. You may not like it, but you did it. If you think it, you did it. And this is what is going on here. There was an inherent law built within people, and people died just because they may not have actually committed certain sins. Yet if they thought about it, even during the times of Abraham and Noah and the ark, if they thought it, they did it. And they broke God's inherent law. And because of that, people died. Okay? The law was given to show us how sinful we are. The law was given to tell us that it's not only just your outward acts that are sin, it's what you think too. Before the law was given, people believed that God was holy. But after the law was given, then people realized how holy God really is. Before Adam and Eve sinned, there was an inherent knowledge. This is before sin. When God created Adam and Eve, before they even sinned, there was an inherent knowledge of the holiness and the righteousness of God. And then, after sin entered into the human race, there was an inherent knowledge of right and wrong. And that was without any laws having ever been written down. So even before the law was given, there was this inner inherent knowledge of what was right and what was wrong. It's an inherent law. And men died, women died when you sinned, when you disobeyed that inherent law. You knew. People out in the jungle, they may not have a written law saying, okay, you can't murder, but they know in their heart. People know, right? It's not complete anarchy here, where anybody can do anything. This free love, free this, free, let's just go out and everybody can do whatever they want and there's no penalties for it. Oh yeah, that would really, that'd be chaos. Can you imagine if everybody just went out and did whatever they felt like doing? People would be murdered off like crazy. You get wackos running around and shooting people. Why? Because that's what makes them feel good. I just love killing people, right? No. There's an inherent law, an inherent set of rules in our heart placed there by God to tell us this is wrong. This is wrong. Stealing is wrong. Hitting somebody's wrong. Lying to somebody, it's wrong. The law was given to reveal to man's conscience that the sinful acts that man was committing were in direct violation to God's commandments, God's holiness, and God's righteousness. So the law wasn't given to tell us we were sinners. No. We already knew that. We already knew something was going wrong when people started dying. when people started dying back in Genesis, they already knew something's wrong here. Something ain't right. But it's because God has built within every single person this inherent knowledge of basically what's right and wrong according to the laws and the commandments of God. And then God gave the law not so we could keep it and not to show us that we're sinners. We already knew we're sinners. God gave us the law to show us just how sinful we really are. God gave us the law to drive us to Christ, to drive us to the cross, to receive grace. It's to say, oh yeah, it's like before the law was given, yeah, I guess I'm a sinner, I know, I'm growing old and my hair is gray and my body is dying, I guess I'm a sinner. But then when the law came, you looked at your, what's that? Holy cow, I'm really bad, I'm really terrible. And that's what the law did. The law was to expose sin for all of its glory, all of its sinful glory, so that we'd really look at ourselves and say, I'm in really bad shape. I need grace. There's nothing I can do to save myself. I need to go to God, to go to Christ and be saved. That's why the law was given. All right? Until next lesson, walk with the Lord. I know He walks with you.